It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy. Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
Well, a little little rain never hurt anybody, but it's sure made things pretty inconvenient. And here at Spring Mountain Raceway, we have quite a bit of rain, unfortunately, out in the desert. I'm Joe Peak here with Ashley Freiberg once again for the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West. And of course, the qualifying is going to be starting off in perhaps one of the trickiest conditions that we could ask for, because it's a slight drizzle, and Ashley, it looks like that they're probably going to be out on rain tires.
Absolutely. And you could see the rain actually just started picking up right before the session started. So it'll be interesting to see how the track changes as we go. As it rains harder, there might be some rivers or some puddling out on the track, which could affect your driving line. So this will be the first time the drivers have driven in the rain this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see where everybody ends up.
Absolutely. So, of course, this will decide the starting grid for both of our races this weekend. First one will be up later today, this afternoon, and then tomorrow afternoon and Sunday, we're going to be having race number 2. So it is their first lap, or their fastest lap, and their second fastest lap that will decide our grid. We'll get the cars out in just a moment. We've got a few minutes before they put that green flag out and the cars get on the track. We were talking yesterday as well during the practice session about how sometimes the rain can affect the racing line. Usually that involves the rubber put down. You were saying yesterday that you didn't think there was all that much out there, but now that we've had that couple practice sessions, how much do you think it'll affect it?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, the rain just started, so as it rains more, that rubber will get washed off the track, and any oils from the cars will get washed off the track. So I'm sure conditions will continue to change. And as a driver, you're always looking for grip in the rain. That's really your main focus. So I have a feeling it'll be interesting to see how everyone's line is out there. I'm sure we'll see a lot of variations in it.
So we can see the drivers lined up on the pre-grid right now, just waiting for the signal to go, and they'll be sent out. You can see the teams all bundled up because not only is it raining out in the desert, it's also been quite cold all weekend long. So everybody's been kind of dealing with the wind and all the stuff that you don't expect out here in the middle of Nevada. But the track itself has honestly been phenomenal, and we've seen some good running up till now. They've had test sessions. As I mentioned, they had practice sessions yesterday as well to prepare. and then they've basically done all their homework, and now it's time to put the rubber to the road. You can see they still have other facilities here at this whole center, where we've got other tracks running simultaneously that have driving schools and coaches and whatnot. They're completely separate from where we're racing here on the Charleston Peak Circuit. But this track with quite a few corners and very few places to pass, we could see, Ashley, this qualifying being relatively important this weekend.
Yeah, race 1 today is going to be in the rain for sure. So I'm sure a lot of the teams as well are using this not only as qualifying, but as a practice session as well to see how the car handles in the rain. And then tomorrow we've got race 2, which will likely be in the dry. So everything that they've been learning yesterday and the day before that, I'm sure will apply tomorrow.
And not only that, it's the first race of the season for the USA West Series. We've already had the first race in the North American Series back down at Sebring a couple weeks ago, but this kicks off this leg of Porsche Sprint Challenge. So drivers are basically coming in with the hardest you could probably ask for, honestly, as a few of them are in new classes or in new types of cars. We've got the 992 Pro-Am class that is out there. We've got the 992 Masters class. And then, of course, we have a Pro-Am and a Masters class for the Caymans. However, there is only one of our Caymans in the Pro-Am. So it is basically all essentially one class of Caymans that are kind of racing out there. Should have 5 of them total, with 21 cars all out at one time. I think this is a long enough track that they should be able to find space, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I would think so. Although over time, I'm sure with the variations in speed, the front runners up in the 992 class will probably catch the back of the Cayman. So that's one thing in qualifying that's important as well, is making sure you find a big enough space to where you can get a clean lap in for qualifying, or 2 laps actually.
Yeah, hopefully you'll get 2 laps out there. And you brought up an interesting point during practice yesterday, that their releasing is based on their practice times, who's quickest. And we saw Blake McDonald come in at the very end of practice and put the fastest lap of anybody down. So he's going to get to be the first released. So sounds like we will have them going in just a moment, because it's about less than 60 seconds before it turns over to 10 o'clock local time out here in Pahrump, Nevada. You can see just how rainy it has been. Just look at the clouds. Well, what should be clouds above, but is basically just a haze that is hovering above us here in the mountains. You said you came in from Las Vegas even, and it was well clear there, but it just kind of came at you as a wall.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about living in the desert, is you get these variations in weather as you come down through the valleys. It kind of gets stuck between the mountain ranges. So that's why this rain is going to stick around all day.
Oh, boy. Well, the green flag has now been waved. You can see the cars exiting out of pit lane. And we'll see how they fare. This is going to be their first laps at this track in the wet. So this outlap is definitely going to be exploratory for everybody.
For sure. And you can see there's quite a bit of spray coming up from the back of the cars as well. So that's another thing when you're trying to find a good qualifying lap, as well as getting enough space in front of you so that you can see the track. And when you're looking for grip on the track, you're looking for areas that are not quite as shiny. You want to see a little bit of grain in the surface, and that's where you know there's probably a little bit more grip, because if there's shiny areas, that means there's standing water. So you want to stay away from those spots.
Thankfully, I haven't spotted much out on the track from our vantage point out here in the tower, but
turn 3, car 2,
sounds like we got.
Looks like we've got a spin here in turn 5 at the exit of turn 5.
Oh yeah.
So pretty slippery right off the bat.
That's 299, and we just heard we'll have race control in our ear here.
Yeah, that looks like Josh Conley.
And he's going to get it
going. Rolling
going.
again.
Just had to wait for a bit of a gap, it looks like. Now he is on his way. But I guess even mistakes are something you can learn from, so now he knows not to do that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, when you're driving in the rain, you have to be incredibly smooth and precise with your inputs. If you're too rough with the car, it's very easy to slide.
There's Blake in the black and white 208 that you see at the front there. And yeah, you mentioned that spray coming off the car. Definitely looks like as he gets up to speed, we're getting more and more. We got another spinner at turn 5. That was the 223. That's Reinald Kron.
Continued. Turn 5 is clear.
Thankfully, he's also on his way pretty quickly. I kind of anticipated, if I'm honest, Ashley, that turn 5 was going to be perhaps the most tricky, because even in the dry during practice, we saw a lot of cars spinning there.
Exactly. Seeing quite a few variations in the brake zone here in turn 10. Quite a few folks. It looks like they're staying a little bit off the dry line. Some are using the dry line. Let's see what works best here.
I'm sure that's something that they're going to have to tiptoe through, at least here on this out lap. But then when it comes to being at speed, that might be a whole different story. We watch Blake McDonald start his first flying lap now.
Turn 16,
coming around.
Turn 16, car 274,
so
spun, and it's continuing. Turn 16 is clear.
And already clear, so whatever little problems we're having, everybody's kind of getting it out of their system pretty quickly. Now, we were told by some of the crew members that they were expecting almost 20 seconds slower a lap potentially. Does that sound right to you?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, the rain really slows things down, and I can see actually here in turn 10 there is a pretty significant puddle there in the exit. We just saw a driver get pretty sideways there at the exit, so I would be willing to bet this track is quite slick. So 20 seconds doesn't sound too out of range there.
I was trying to make out who
turn
that
18,
was.
Turn 18, car 223 is spun.
So
Driver's
once again,
right,
the 223.
At
No, actually,
I
don't think Jay Barron had a spin before, but looks like he's going to get
car
it moving. That would be the
223 has
last
continued.
corner coming onto the
Turn
main
18
straight.
is clear.
Unfortunately, that means the start of his lap is going to be compromised because he'll be slow across the line in comparison. Although, in these conditions, maybe it won't matter quite as much. Still waiting for our first times to be set, as Blake McDonald has not managed to get back around.
Car 50. That car does not have a functioning transponder.
So something
Car
wrong with
50,
the
car
car of
50,
Eli
pit
Kogan.
now to
we're
repair.
hearing.
50, hit now.
So they're calling it into pit lane. I didn't quite make out. Did you hear what
I
they?
didn't quite hear that either.
Yeah.
So we've got Laura Eli looking to make a move there.
That car does not have a functioning transponder. That car needs to pit now
So it's a
to
transponder
repair.
issue.
Car
That's why they're
99
calling
and car 50.
those two back in. 99 is also the car of Michael Galkey. They'll hopefully get that sorted out. We only have 25 minutes for this qualifying session, so they don't have a lot of time. Not sure where they'll wind up. Well, I guess they'll wind up at the back of the pack, but I don't know how they will order them if both of them can't get that out in a lap on the board in time. Man, you can tell just how much slower they are taking that turn 10 just right in front of us right now. And the 215, you can see him through there right this moment on your screens. And he's going to just tiptoe his way up and over through Tortoise. That's Luke French, who's also got the spray in front of him from the 299 of Josh Conley.
He's got our first lap here by Blake McDonald at a 2:33.0.
Turn 11, car 257 is spun and continuing. He's driver's left, exit of turn 11.
So I believe that's going to be Parnagian,
Car
who had a
257
little
has
bit of an off.
continued. Turn 11 is clear.
Casey Dennis up into first. Laura Eli with third place. She was mentioning yesterday she loves to drive in the rain, so it'll be interesting to see how well she does here. Luke French taking third. So this is our first round of laps here.
The astonishing thing is Casey Dennis is 5 seconds quicker than Blake McDonald on that first lap. Now, I thought I saw Blake may have been held up by a car in front of him, so that could explain some of that. Regardless, Casey is flying at the start of this.
Yeah, I did notice Casey actually backed up quite a bit, so he's spacing himself out here like we talked about earlier. Giving himself a nice, clean, clear lap is so crucial in qualifying.
Yeah, now starting to see a few of them get themselves a gap out there. That's the 209 of Laura. who still sits in 5th after we've got the first 14 cars on the board. Still need a full lap from a few of those farther back down the field. Still looking for, and no wonder it looks like most of those are our Caymans, who take a little bit longer to try and circulate around this track. Still seeing Casey Dennis on the top as the 255.
Turn 6, car 240 is off and continuing drivers right at turn 6.
Turn 6 is right next to us, but looks like they've carried on. So.
Turn 3. Car 233, fun and continued, drivers left at turn 3.
I think we're going to be hearing a lot from race control.
It's quite busy right now, for sure.
They are being kept on their toes by a number of cars having offs and spins, but no contact, no damage. Everybody able to carry on, thankfully. It's the last thing we want is to start the weekend off with some damage repairs for the crew to have to deal with. So we see Parnagian sandwiched in the middle of 2 cars. This is coming through the infield portion, down into turn 9. This is another swift little left-hand flick, and then it's up over a crest that you can see in the foreground there, up into turn 10. Let's follow them all the way to here and see who can find a little bit of a better line. You can see the 233 doing what you were talking about, staying off the rubbered in line.
Oh, we've got Jim Walsh coming up there into P2 overall. Oh, within a second of Casey Dennis.
Turn 9, car 223.
Yeah,
drivers left.
That's now, within 9/10 it looks like, so.
Kyle Washington as well, jumping up into 3rd.
Talked to Kyle last night. He is a full plate of racing. He's not only doing the USA West Series, he's also racing in SRO. And various other regional series that is keeping him traveling quite a bit. So I guess he's getting the seat time.
Turn 18. We've got a car spun at the exit of turn 18. This is car 256.
Meanwhile, at the end of the lap,
looks like John McGinnis had a spin there.
256 is off drivers right, preparing to continue. This car has
he's
continued.
gotten back on the track. I can see him out the window now. He's back onto the front stretch. But Kyle Washington, as we mentioned, into 3rd. Blake McDonald has moved himself into 4th. Also, for those curious, on your timing tower on the left, the gray or white numbers that you see, that is your Pro-Am. And then your Masters is the blue, with your Caymans being the yellow one. So if you want to follow who is in what position within the classes, Dennis doing a great job, and Jim Walsh as well in that Masters class. 2nd overall, clearly feeling pretty comfortable in these inclement weather conditions.
Man, you can see the spray is just getting heavier and heavier. Definitely the rain is picking up, which will slow the track down if it starts to flood.
16, we've got a car off drivers right.
Hopefully we won't get
that. Got another car off. It looks like, is that Casey Dennis? Number 274. Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. The pole sitter.
That is right up to one of the berms. I was trying to figure out where they said that was.
Red flag starter, red flag.
We're going to throw the red flag. He's kind of stuck down there in the ditch.
I think I see a little bit of damage.
Yeah.
So he must have hit that berm. And that.
Oh, what a bummer.
That looks to be off to. I wonder if he spun off of turn 9, actually. Because,
yeah, that's a fast section, too.
Yeah, you can see the tire tracks heading all the way across
right
to him. So they said turn 16, but it came from turn 9, and that's probably why they have those berms there, to prevent cars from going all the way across.
Right.
That makes for an interesting situation. I mean, you might know the rules better than I do on this situation. What happens if a car puts itself on pole and then winds up crashing out of qualifying in this series?
That's a great question. I have not experienced it yet, so I don't know.
Probably a good problem that you haven't had to look that up.
Something I don't want to even think about.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Oh, man.
Thankfully, we do not share this with any other series, although the clock is still ticking under this red flag. I'm not sure if they will pause the clock or not. but they are letting it run right now. If they pause it, that should give everybody some more time to get back out there. But if they need the full 13 minutes, we only got 19 cars with laps in. Kogan and Galke still haven't set a time. Washington going to park up his car on pit lane. You can see how miserable the view is outside of the cockpit.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just saying the rain's picking up before this took place. As the rain gets stronger here, the track is going to be more and more tricky to get through because you will have to keep continuously changing your line, especially as you start to get these puddles starting to form. And now that the cars are going into pit lane, if this rain continues, it'll only get even more interesting if we go back to green.
And the timing of it couldn't have been worse because essentially until about 10 minutes before, the track was maybe a bit damp, but it wasn't fully wet. And we were at the drivers' meeting and hearing them tell the drivers that they haven't considered it at that crossover point yet. And then we traveled out to our commentary booth, and as soon as we got up in here, you could look out and tell just how wet it became. So if it had held off, another half an hour, then maybe we would have had a chance at trying this in the dry, but it was just not meant to be, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I don't think we have a camera on the other side, but it does look like on the driver's left, I can see what looks like a bit of bodywork buckled up.
Yeah, possibly some left front suspension damage, I would assume.
Yeah, if that's more than cosmetic, then they do thankfully have until 2:30 this afternoon for the race, but the team's going to have to do some hard work to get that prepped and ready once again. And, of course, that's going to change the geometry, too, I'd imagine, if they have to replace suspension parts.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully they have enough time to, put the car on the pad and get it all straightened out before race 2.
I'm sure it doesn't look like it was that big of a hit, so I'm sure he's okay. Just usually they tell the drivers to stay in the car until the safety crew gets there. So we'll probably see him emerge now that they've managed to find their way out. They've all lined up on pit lane.
Scoring. Please apply the appropriate penalty to car 274 for causing a red flag during qualifying.
There we go. So apparently there is a penalty involved in that. I'm going to guess that's close to IndyCar rules and that you lose your fastest lap or something akin to that. And we'll see him get sent back down. Blake McDonald, interestingly, is sitting in that second position right now. He was our quickest in Friday practice at the end of the day. So he could find himself with a handy pole position if this takes too long to get back out on the track.
And then we've got Jim Walsh and Kyle Washington and Laura Eli all within the top 4. They are all actually Jim. Actually, yeah, that's right. They're all in the Masters class.
Yeah, the Masters class has been showing that all that old age and experience actually does count for something. And in fact, yeah, there we go. Okay, penalty has been applied. And he is down to the end of the field. That means McDonald gets promoted to the pole. And more interestingly, if it does stay like this, we have French, Mulcahy, and Lee all the way down in 6th, 7th, and 8th overall before you get to another car within that Pro-Am class. So he's going to have a huge buffer of other class cars between himself and his rivals.
We've got Richard Kinsey on pole position there in the Cayman class as well.
He was looking pretty good yesterday with the quickest time of the Cayman Masters. He was beat a little bit by Eli Kogan, but Eli did not manage to set a time during this qualifying session. So while we wait for them to try and sort things out, we're going to take a quick ad break. We'll be back, hopefully, with some cars on the track here in our qualifying session
official is car
at Spring Mountain.
257. Car 257 will
It's hard
receive
to
a
contain your
5-minute
excitement when you
hold
get something you've really wanted.
at the resumption of this
Like the
session
gold standard in
for running
automotive
the red
protection,
flag.
WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? Weather Tech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy. Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
Welcome back to Spring Mountain. We have our qualifying session for the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West by Yokohama, which has unfortunately been interrupted by a red flag. The former pole sitter of Casey Dennis lost it, we believe, in turn 9, slid all the way out, and there aren't very many walls here, but he found one of the berms that unfortunately stranded the car. And the worst news for Casey, Ashley, is that he has now lost his pole position for causing the red flag.
I know, such a bummer. I would be so gutted to be in that position because he was a full second ahead of P2, Blake McDonald. But hey, you know, stuff happens and you just got to move forward and start focusing on the race. And hopefully these damages aren't too crazy and his team can get his car back together for the race.
Well, we have had some standouts, of course, when you have conditions like this of drivers really getting a chance to shine. Blake McDonald isn't that much of a surprise because he was quickest in practice yesterday. As we see a few of them lined up, there is Blake McDonald there at the top of your screen in the yellow and black, who is currently our quickest, and it's by 15 thousandths of a second. I didn't notice that before. It's very close for him. Almost had a Masters driver on pole. Jim Walsh is the one chasing him in the 269, and we've got, in fact, of the top 5, only a single driver in the Pro-Am, Blake McDonald. Otherwise, we've got Jim Walsh, Kyle Washington, Laura Eli, and Kevin Woods behind him, Ashley.
Yeah, it's really cool to see everyone up front there in the Masters class. Going to be some good racing here when we get to the race later this afternoon. Laura Eli, great job there in the rain. She was telling us yesterday how much she loves the rain. Third in class right now, and yeah, we'll see how it goes later today.
So it looks like they're getting Dennis's car up onto the truck, so they'll get him out of the way shortly. They said they did not anticipate it restarting. They're getting close to being clear, though, but they got to get that truck back out of the firing line, and hopefully that'll only just be a couple minutes.
Both individuals.
It actually looks like they did wave the checkered flag. We see some cars pulling back into the paddock area.
Well, that is a real shame, and especially for Eli Kogan and Michael Galke. If you missed earlier in qualifying, they had transponder issues. They were required to come back into pit lane, and they did not have enough time to get out and get a lap before that red flag flew. So they will probably be starting towards the back of the field as well. Life's going to be a bit difficult for them. They are both in the Cayman, so it's not the biggest of classes, and they won't have to pass too many cars. Washington giving a little peace sign to, I guess, some of the crew as he drives by and tries to bring it back towards the paddock now. But I'm sure everybody will just try and get dried off, recoup, and prepare for what we expect will also be a relatively wet race 1.
Yeah, and actually, if you look down the grid, most of the drivers only got 2 timed laps in. So we really only needed 2 laps for today's race and tomorrow's race for qualifying. So really, at such limited time to get your qualifying laps in there. So hopefully everyone pulled a good one there. But again, we're in the rain and constant changing conditions. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes later.
Almost kind of F1 style to just get those 2 attempts at it
right.
in the qualifying session. And honestly, that always impressed me with some drivers, Ashley, and maybe you can shed some light on that, is at least when I'm in a sim, I find I cannot just pump out that best lap on that first try. Is that something as a driver that a skill that you learn to really be able to just put it down?
Yeah, I mean, in practice, you have to almost treat every session like a qualifying session or like a race, so that when you go out on track right off the bat, you're as quick as you can be. However, you know, if you're learning a track or you're learning the conditions or learning a new car, there are definitely some variables there. But to mentally be able to go out and push right off the bat is something you learn over time for sure, and comfort level as well.
209 294.
There's the 274 coming back. Maybe we'll finally actually get an angle on the left-hand side.
3299.
They're going to just drive it directly across. One of the conveniences of having this track out in the desert, honestly, is just that you can just kind of drive it back to wherever, as long as there's no walls in the way. Well, as that wraps up our qualifying session, so does it too wrap up our coverage. We'll be back at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time for race 1 of the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West by Yokohama Series. Again, my name is Joe Peak, joined by Ashley Freiberg. We'll be back later today, so join us for more racing here in Pahrump, Nevada.